He's Chase Sr. I'm Harrison Graham. Day one of NFL free agency is rolling along. The Seattle Seahawks continue to be active, so we'll get you guys caught up on some of the latest moves for Seattle. The latest one being, Chase, Will Dissly. 3 years, $24 million, $8 million per year. Instant reaction here?
Yeah, a little bit of an overpay, and I think it was a little bit of an overpay for Diggs as well. If you're a Seattle fan, a member of the 12s, you're looking at the Seahawks right now. They traded away a franchise icon and the most recognizable face that Seattle's ever had in Russell Wilson. But on the other side of that, at least the Seattle front office is still competitive. They're still aggressive. They're wheeling and dealing, trying to stay competitive and make moves to win right now. As for Will Dissly, he's obviously going to be the backup tight end to Noah Fant. I'm high on Fant, and I like the fact that he was included in that package for Russell Wilson. I think he's tapped into some of his potential, but I think his potential really is enormous. But $8 million per year for Will Dissly is a little bit of a questionable move for me. It's a lot of money for a guy who has had limited production as a pass catcher. He's never surpassed 262 yards year by year with Seattle. He's gone 156, 262, 251, 231. Really looked at as a tight end who's instrumental in the ground game. Now, could Pete Carroll be looking at Will Dissly and say, okay, Noah Fant can be our slot tight end, because that's become more and more popular now for tight ends to go in that slot position. Will Dissly can still be on the field and pose a threat while on the field with Fant as a pass catcher and a run blocker. Maybe there's something behind that.
Potentially. I mean, a couple of years ago, Dissly was starting to break out. He gets injured. Hasn't really done a ton since. I mean, you guys see the production there. Yeah, he's a decent blocker, but I don't know, $8 million a year for a tight end too. That is probably a better blocker than a receiver. That kind of feels like a lot. What do you guys think? Grade the move, scale it from 1 to 100. Will Dissly back, 3 years, $24 million. I mean, 55. I don't like it. I think it's, teams overpaying for agency. That's how it goes. But this is their own free agent. If this is what his market was, I'd say, see ya. Have fun elsewhere. For
him, he's like, hey, $8 million per year, and I don't even know who my quarterback's going to be. Let me sign that contract.
I'll stay in Seattle. Jeez, scale it from 1 to 100. Another re-signing for the Seattle Seahawks, Sidney Jones. I like this value better, Chase. 1 year, $3.6 million. He's flashed at times. He was a big prospect coming out of college. Bounced around a little bit, but there's still some potential there. I think this value is a lot better than Will Dissly's.
Look, when he went to Washington, he was looked at as probably the number one cornerback in the draft that year. Ends up popping his Achilles in a really disastrous moment for him during his pro day. Philadelphia Eagles still take a chance on him. They take him in the second round, and he just couldn't deal with the pressure cooker of Philadelphia. And I don't think the defensive scheme really lended itself to him being able to be successful as a football player. He gets let go by Philly. He goes to Jacksonville and ends up being pretty productive as a cornerback. And then that's where the Seahawks came in, able to pick him up basically off the scrap heap from Jacksonville, and was okay last year. Look, he's a player still who's young. He's overcome the injury issues with that torn Achilles. He's had some level of production. 1 year, $3.5 million prove-it deal. I don't hate it for Seattle.
Compete for a starting job, maybe. At least be a backup. Not bad at all.
Slot, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Al Woods, he re-signs kind of one of their top run stoppers on that defensive line. 2 years, $9 million, about half of that guaranteed. I just mentioned it. Good run stopper, Chase. Rotational type of guy. That can be that one-tech guy, a big frame, 6'4", 310. He's been there for a couple of years. Kind of like the Jones deal. Good value. He'll rotate in and out, especially on rundowns.
Yeah, no, and Pete Carroll is a defensive-minded head coach, and he's always taken a priority in building that defense, especially on the defensive line. Al Woods factors into that conversation. He was good this past year. He wasn't great, but you're not paying him great money. Another good value signing for the Seattle Seahawks. We'll get to Diggs here momentarily, but Al Woods, as well as Sidney Jones, I like those additions and bringing those guys back to really round out the roster without having to pay too much money.
Some familiar names, re-signing with Seattle. This is why you subscribe to us here at Seahawks Today, youtube.com/Seahawks TV. Whether it's myself, whether it's Tom Downey, whoever in the Chat Sports office, we'll be bringing you the latest Seahawks news and rumors, especially throughout free agency. We're closing in on 25,000 subscribers. Help us get there. Show out 12th man. Let's get to 25K as soon as possible. All right, the one that stands out the most with Seattle, we broke this down earlier. Tom and Mitch did. Now our turn to break it down, Chase. 3 years, $40 million. You know, if he fully recovers and plays at the level he's been playing at, he loves playing in Seattle. He tweeted as much earlier today. Then I guess it's not terrible, but coming off the big injury, it's a big commitment for a guy with a major lower leg injury here, Chase.
It is. And look, like, you're in the secondary right now, and you're paying $40 million to Quandre Diggs. Of course, it always comes down in the NFL to guaranteed money, and he's going to get a large chunk of that through the guaranteed money avenue. But you're paying big money to Quandre Diggs, and you sign Jamal Adams, who really is a box safety, to that $70 million deal, and you're paying him $17.5 per year. It's a lot of money to two players, and for Jamal Adams, he's a box safety at this point. Now, can you find ways to utilize him and his athleticism and his unique ability to really play in the box and get after the quarterback and be that box safety who can track down running backs? Yes, you can. And I think they're going to continue to really build that scheme around Jamal Adams and allow him to really flourish and have success in that scheme as a limited player. But the point here being, Harrison, a lot of money to these two players in that back end.
Yeah, I mean, when your two highest paid defensive players now that Bobby Wagner is gone are two safeties, position that isn't valued a ton in today's NFL, you know, it's certainly a decision. Now, a player leaving Seattle, Jamarco Jones, signing a 2-year contract, $5.75 million with Tennessee, kind of a rotation offensive line type swing guy there. He leaves for Tennessee, so Seattle loses some of their offensive line depth. I would imagine they bring in someone similar to help fill that void.
You would think, and again, it's really important for Seattle, of course. It's the big looming question for this organization to figure out quarterback. And if you figure out quarterback, and when you figure out quarterback, you have to provide some protection up front. And a big reason why Russell Wilson was frustrated the last couple of years, Harrison, obviously the lack of creativity with offensive play calling, but he was hit a lot.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Cedric Ogbuehi, he also leaves. He's heading to Houston. 1 year, $1.4 million, so Seattle loses a couple of their depth players to other teams. Nothing major on that front as they've brought back a couple of their key guys, including Quandre Diggs. So now, Chase, Seattle's been pretty active here on day one of free agency. Obviously, the big question remains, who's going to be this team's quarterback? Is it going to be Drew Lock? Do they try to hop into the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes? Do they punt for a year? I don't know. It doesn't seem like they are with some of the money they're shelving out to some of these guys. Seems like they're still going to try to win this year, but certainly, a team to watch out for over the next, couple of days here.
Yeah, no question. And like from an organizational philosophy standpoint, it's a huge blow to lose a player like Russell Wilson. But again, if you're a Seahawks fan, like you still have an organization that's invested. And one of the big questions I had was, Pete Carroll's in his 70s now, right? Is he going to be cool with the rebuild? And are the Seahawks going to undergo a rebuild? And what's that front office going to do? Well, it looks as though Pete Carroll, who does have a lot of say in Seattle in the Pacific Northwest, isn't cool, isn't getting down with the rebuild. Now, in order for a full rebuild not to take place and for this upcoming year to not be a disaster, you have to find out who your quarterback is going to be. If you move forward with Drew Lock, that doesn't make any sense to me. If you make a big splash for a Deshaun Watson type, then all of these moves make a lot more sense.
Yeah, no doubt. Grade the move so far, A, B, C, D, or F. Or Chase kind of inferenced it. Type I for incomplete. If you get a legit quarterback, cool. If not, it's like, why are you paying Will Dissly $24 million? So let us know, A, B, C, D, or F, or type I for incomplete. And also, subscribe to our main Chat Sports YouTube channel. If you're watching this on our Seahawks channel, we are live. Breaking down every single move that comes down the pipeline in free agency. Links below, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Do not miss our live free agency coverage.